All right, so I'm just going to jump into this one today. And I'm going to start with I saw online Browns fans being fans and doing, what fans do, pointing fingers at different places and trying to figure out where the blame is for this week's loss and honestly, this entire season. But my honest reaction to all of this is there's not one individual to blame. There's not one person that's going to go away and that everything's going to be fixed, right? And I'm not trying to sound hopeless. I am hopeful for this team next year. I'm actually not worried about this team's fortunes next year because I have faith in the organization as a whole to make the changes that need to be made and make the decisions that need to be made in order for this team to be put in the right place. But if we're talking about diagnosing this dumpster fire that we've been watching since September, then there are a few ways to divvy it up, right? You could blame it on the coach. You could blame it on the offensive coordinator. You can blame it on the quarterback. You can blame it on the offensive line. You can blame it on all of those things. But at the end of the day, it's not just one thing with this team. It has not been just one thing with this team. This team sucks. They suck. The roster doesn't suck. And this is the second time this season I've had to say this. This team sucks. You have a great roster. You have a bad team. This team sucks. Every time the Browns are in a back against the wall kind of moment, a save this season kind of moment, a redeem everything kind of moment. Every time there are a ton of eyeballs watching this team folds. They curl up into a ball. They are not the same guys that they are when nobody's watching. Because in training camp, this roster was great. The preseason was great. This roster was awesome. And they were putting together awesome things. But the second the national eye started to get wide, the second these games actually started to matter, we found out that this team sucks. And I don't say that to be pessimistic. I don't say that to have a hopeless message. I say that because that is the truth about the team. It's not hopeless. This team is not hopeless. The roster is good. You can churn out some things, but the team is bad. You don't have leadership in the right places. You don't have veterans in the right places. The mindset, the mentality of this locker room stinks. And it shows itself when this team needs to come up with a win. This is exactly like the Denver game, but worse because you don't have Myles Garrett. This is exactly how I felt after the Denver game. I remember saying that this team sucks in the same manner that I'm saying it now after the Denver game. And we can blame that on Freddie Kitchens. We can blame it on John Dorsey for not putting the right veterans in place. But the truth of the matter is, when your team sucks, your entire team sucks. There is not one single person who can go away and fix it because the entire team sucks. This doesn't mean that you can't win with this roster or some of the core pieces. You very easily can. This does not mean that Odell Beckham has to get traded away or that Baker Mayfield has to be released or that Jarvis Landry or Kareem Hunt have to go away for this team to be successful. But what it does mean is that it's going to be very important for this offense, very important for this general manager, John Dorsey, to make the right moves in the offseason. And what those right moves are exactly what they weren't last year. We don't need the big flashy moves. We don't need the young guys full of potential. We need veterans. We need leadership. We need people who can turn this locker room from sucking to being a winning locker room. Look at what ended up being the crossroads of the season. Many people call it the Super Bowl for the Cleveland Browns. That is their game against the Baltimore Ravens, week 4. And it's ironic because everything went south after that game for the Cleveland Browns. When they beat the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore, beat them down, beat that booty, they felt vindicated, and it all went downhill after that because they played the 49ers on Monday Night Football and got stomped. And then that's when the season really took a turn for the worse. But for the Baltimore Ravens, see, this is why the Baltimore Ravens are a good team, right? This is why they're a good organization. Because you can win or lose games, you can have a talented roster, but this is the difference between the Baltimore Ravens, who don't suck, and the Browns, who do. Even though the Browns won that game was more important for the Baltimore Ravens. They dropped it, they made changes, and as a locker room, they had some bumps and bruises that they overcame and came together over, and they became the best team in the NFL after that loss. Because if you haven't realized, the Ravens haven't lost the game since the Browns beat them in Baltimore. See, that's a team that doesn't suck. That's a team that has leadership in the right places. That's a team who's not relying overly on their second-year quarterback to be a locker room leader like the Cleveland Browns. That's a team with smart ownership and smart general managing that put the right veterans in the right place. Mark Ingram, tremendous pickup for the Baltimore Ravens. Veteran guy, great for the locker room, great to lead. So Lamar Jackson doesn't have to carry all of that, and all Lamar has to do is play. See, that's a team that doesn't suck. The Cleveland Browns, on the other hand, when things went downhill, when things went bad, after they got their butt kicked by San Francisco on Monday Night Football, the team never recovered, quite frankly, because they don't have leadership in the right place. Who on this team has won a Super Bowl? I'll wait. Because I don't think anybody on this team has won a Super Bowl, has gone far in the playoffs, is a decorated, well-respected veteran. This is why I wanted the Browns to bring Eric Berry in the offseason on this team. Not to play, but to be a leader in the locker room. To be one of those vets. This is why I wanted Mike Daniels, because Mike Daniels has won a lot of games and has been in a lot of winning locker rooms. That's why I wanted him more than I wanted Gerald McCoy, because Gerald McCoy ain't never won in his life. But Mike Daniels has. Mike Daniels is a winner. See, you need vets in order to win in the NFL, and you need to put them in good places. Olivier Vernon, was he supposed to be that? How could you expect Olivier Vernon to be one of those vets when Olivier Vernon has never accomplished anything that Odell Beckham hasn't? And Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, while I do think they are leaders, are not accomplished. They have not won anything of significance. They have not played a lot of playoff games. They do not know what it takes. See, you needed people who knew what it takes, whether they are big parts in this locker room or small parts in this locker room. And that's what this team doesn't have. They don't have that. They don't have the backbone. They don't have the veteran leadership. They don't have those things that take a good roster from just being a good roster to being a good team. But instead, we have a good roster and a terrible team. We can blame Freddie Kitchens, but the problem with the Browns isn't that Freddie Kitchens is the worst head coach of all time. He's not great, but you know what? The problem hasn't been Freddie since Denver. This week, the problem wasn't Freddie. It really wasn't. The team just did not decide that this game was important enough to them and that this game was worth winning. So they played like flat cola. They played like absolute garbage. And some people will hit me up on Twitter and say, well, Quincy, isn't it the coach's job to motivate the players? Absolutely not. Maybe in Pee Wee football, it's the coach's job to motivate the players. Maybe in middle school JV football, it's the coach's job to motivate the players. Hell, maybe in JV, in some low-level varsity football, it's the coach's job to motivate the players. But when you're playing real-time, real football, college, upper high school level, it's up to the players to decide that they want to win. You need winners in that locker room. You need winning mentalities. You need people who want to win every game and will do what they have to make that happen. That's what you need. And I don't care what level of football it is. It's up to the player, especially in the NFL, when the players are actually getting paid handsomely for their work. I don't have to have somebody call. I don't need my dad to call me and motivate me and give me a rah-rah speech to put up a YouTube video, because I'm an adult, and adults go to work and do what they got to do because we're adults. The Browns are full of adults. It's not Freddie Kitchens' job to motivate them. It's Freddie Kitchens' job to put a game plan together that puts the offense in a level to be successful. And you know what? The offense really, the game plan wasn't terrible. Sure, they went away from the run at the beginning of the game, but they went right back to it. That wasn't a problem. The defense was awful. The defense was god-awful. The defense was some of the worst football I've seen played. And you know what? I thought it couldn't get worse after what they put up in Cincinnati. Because I said last week that how they played Cincinnati against Cincinnati was some of the worst run defense I've seen in the last 5 years. And I got some pushback on that. Was I wrong? Was this not some of the worst run defense you saw from a Browns team? I haven't seen it this bad since before Phil Taylor, since before Danny Shelton. We have no presence on the inside. This team gets no push, and it's been happening since the Pittsburgh game. This is not new for the Cleveland Browns. None of this is new. None of this is new news. Since Myles Garrett has been out, this team has been garbage at stopping the run. And you know what? Yeah, is Myles Garrett a generational player? Is his presence, I've known since last season how important Myles Garrett was, because anytime he was off the field during this season, the defense got pushed around like they've been getting pushed around for the last 3 weeks. I wasn't surprised that the defense stunk this bad without Myles Garrett and without Olivier Vernon, who has not played to his... By the way, I can't wait for the Browns to cut Olivier Vernon. He's been a complete flop and a complete bust, and he's due $15 million on March 15th. Please, Olivier Vernon is not going to see 2020 in brown and orange. He can go somewhere else. That money's going to be spent better. But I digress. This defensive line has been embarrassing. I mean, and what do we pay guys like Larry Ogunjobi and Sheldon Richardson for? So that if Myles Garrett or Olivier Vernon aren't there, hey, the whole defensive line doesn't turn into an embarrassment, but this is expansion level bad defensive line from two guys who think they're Pro Bowlers. We have two guys who think they're Pro Bowlers on that defensive line, and they get pushed around like I haven't seen the 99 Browns get pushed around, because at least they had Courtney Brown, right? Like, come on. We want to talk about quarterback. We want to talk about Freddie Kitchens. Let's talk about the real problem on the team is that this defensive line is dirt without Myles Garrett. And there's so much money invested in it. And they can't get out of Sheldon Richardson's contract till I think 2 years without owing a cap hit. And I think they might take it. I honestly think they will, because it's not worth it at this point. Why are you paying Sheldon Richardson $8 to $10 million a year if this is what you can get this from an undrafted dude? And then people are telling me, oh, we should re-sign Joe Schobert. We should re-sign Demarius Randall. These guys are keys to the future. They are keys to nothing. They are keys to a minivan with no wheels, with no rims, sitting on cinder blocks. They are useless. They are keys to nothing. What difference are they going to make if they ain't make a difference out there in the last 3 weeks? You do realize that the Browns stopped the run and got penetration at a competent NFL level, the average level. The Browns probably would have won the last 2 out of 3 games. They would have won in Pittsburgh. They would have won this week. But they can't. They aren't even playing at competent levels. And oh boy, Baltimore comes to town next week. And you know what? Lamar Jackson is 5th in the league in rushing. I guarantee you he ends that game 3rd in the league in rushing if it doesn't get bad enough early to where he just stops running the ball. But I digress. I go on this rant not to make everybody pessimistic, not to destroy hope of anybody who is hopeful of this roster. But I go on this rant because I see so much finger pointing at the coaching staff when the problem has been this locker room. The problem has been the players. There's no leadership. There's no vets. This team does not know how to respond to getting punched. That's the problem. At the end of the day, you can have the greatest head coach in the world. It's not going to solve these problems in the locker room. And I go on the rant because I think this team could easily be 12-4 next year. This roster could. If they get a few things, it's not even that difficult to fix a lot of these things that are wrong with the team, especially on offense. It's way overblown how much needs to be done on that offense. There's really not that much that needs to be fixed on offense. The problem is the locker room sucks. Like, nobody's having fun. Have you noticed that this year? Nobody on this team is having fun like they did last year. You know, when you had guys like Darren Fells, when you had veterans on this team like you did last year that helped the team move along, you know, even a Tyrod Taylor helped. You know, you really were on to something. But they got rid of a lot of the veterans that were on this team, the leadership behind the people, and they replaced them with superstars or young and up-and-coming superstars who don't know how to win. And that's why we are where we are. The future's bright for this team, honestly. You know, it's not difficult to fix these things. But if we're not focused on the right things to fix, and if we're pointing at Freddie Kitchens as if getting rid of him is going to be the end-all, be-all and magically fix this team because Ron Rivera is the greatest head coach of all time, or Mike McCarthy is the greatest head coach of all time, we're going to be in for another dumpster fire next year. And then we're going to fire another head coach next year because that's not the solution. The solution is that while John Dorsey has created a great roster, he has constructed a very poor team. And it's up to John Dorsey to fix these things and make the adjustments, some minor, some major, in order for this roster, this great roster, the bones of it at the very least, make this great roster into a great team. Because right now they are just a great roster. They are a bad, bad team. But that's all I have to say about this week's game. I'm sorry if I'm heated. I'm sorry if this wasn't as organized as I normally, but I had a lot to say and I wanted to make sure it was said because I think it's important that these sentiments be out there. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you think this warrants more finger pointing? Do you think getting rid of Freddie's going to solve everything? Or do you think this is a team problem? Like I do. I don't think that the coaching staff being changed is going to change much, honestly. I think the team sucks. I think the roster's great, but the team sucks. That's my opinion. I think John Dorsey needs to figure out how to make the team better, and the players in this locker room need to figure out how to make the team better, regardless of who's the coach. But that's my thoughts on this. Let me know. That's my thoughts on this. Thank you guys for watching. And before I go, anybody who's made it this far in the video, I really do appreciate if you stuck around and if you've watched these videos. I know this season has been bad and hard, and it's been hard to watch. And I know a lot of my audience has dropped off a little bit as the disappointment has mounted, and I don't blame those people. But I do appreciate the people who still come in and day out. And just like the Browns this offseason, there are going to be some big changes coming after the end of this season. I've been excited about these changes. I've been really happy about the direction I'm going to take this channel. It's a slightly new direction, but don't worry. If you're a diehard Browns fan, you're not going to be left behind. But if you are a NFL fan, there's going to be more for you, and there's going to be more for everybody. I want to make better content, and I want to make more quality content moving forward, and I'm excited because I get to launch all of that at the end of the season. So thank you guys for being with me. Thank you guys for watching with me, especially if you're a Browns fan. I know this has been a tough season, but the future is bright on this channel, and the future is bright on the Browns. We just got to get there. We just got to chug along. But thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.